The internet is full of stories. You hear them whispered in boardrooms or shared as warnings. They ring so true they feel real, even if the names and numbers change with each telling. The main characters in this story, Alastair Finch of Finch Industries and Dr. Evelyn Reed of Innovate Forward, are fictional. But the story itself is a powerful parable for our time. Think of it as an allegory about respect, hidden power, and the staggering cost of underestimating someone. This is one of those stories. Intro: The Summit of Giants. The air in the grand ballroom of the Celestial Peaks Hotel was thick with the smell of money and ambition. It was the last day of the Global Synergy Summit, an annual pilgrimage for titans of industry, tech visionaries, and financial predators. Here, deals worth more than the GDP of small countries were sketched on napkins over lukewarm coffee. The stakes were astronomical, and the egos were even bigger. At the center of this universe was Alastair Finch, a name that meant ruthless efficiency and jaw-dropping wealth. Finch Industries, the company he'd inherited and brutally expanded, had its fingers in everything from aerospace to private data. His face, a mask of chiseled indifference, was a regular on business magazine covers, usually under headlines with words like tycoon, disruptor, or his personal favorite, king. Alastair didn't just walk, he conquered. He moved through the crowds of lesser millionaires and hopeful execs like a shark parting a school of fish. He was flanked by his two lieutenants, Mark and Jonathan, young guys whose main job was to laugh at his jokes and nod at his commands. "The presentation is loaded, Mr. Finch," Mark said, his voice a low hum of deference. "The board members from Innovate Forward are in the front row. Everything's perfectly staged." "It better be," Alastair grunted, not breaking stride. "This $2 billion deal isn't just about expanding our satellite division. It's about dominance. Innovate Forward is our ticket to a monopoly on next-gen global communication. They need us just as much as we need them, they just don't know it yet." Jonathan, ever the suck-up, chimed in. "Oh, they'll know it after your speech, sir. Nobody commands a room like you." Alastair let a smirk touch his lips. It was true. He didn't see business as collaboration, he saw it as a battle of wills. And his will, he'd found, was always stronger. Today was just a formality, the public handshake on a deal that lawyers had hammered out for months. The CEO of Innovate Forward, some recluse he'd never met, was supposedly here. A figurehead, Alastair assumed. The real power was in the numbers, and his numbers were unbeatable. As they neared the conference hall, an event organizer spotted Alastair and rushed over, his face a mix of terror and awe. "Mr. Finch. An honor, sir. We're about to begin. Let me introduce you to some of our other keynote attendees." Alastair gave a curt nod, a signal that he was allowing this interruption, but barely. The organizer gestured to a small group. "This is Mr. Dubois from the Parisian Tech Council, Ms. Chen of the Shanghai Collective, and, this is Dr. Evelyn Reed." Hook in Section 1, The Act of Hubris. Alastair's eyes flickered over the first two, giving them the brief, dismissive glance he saved for people who could do nothing for him. Then his gaze landed on Dr. Evelyn Reed. She was a poised black woman in an impeccably tailored, yet understated, charcoal gray suit. No flashy jewelry, no big-shot watch, just an aura of calm, self-contained confidence. She looked sharp, observant, and in Alastair's world of snap judgments, she didn't register as a major player. His brain, wired for brutal categorization, processed her appearance and filed her under a label he understood: staff. An organizer, maybe. A high-level assistant. Important to someone else, but not to him. Dr. Reed met his gaze and extended her hand. "Mr. Finch," she said, her voice even and clear. "A pleasure to finally meet you." Alastair Finch looked down at her outstretched hand like it was something strange and unpleasant that had appeared on his dinner plate. He didn't just ignore it, he made a show of it. He clasped his own hands behind his back in a posture of regal dismissal. He let the silence hang for a beat, a calculated pause designed to throw people off balance. Then, he turned his head slightly toward the terrified organizer, but spoke loud enough for everyone, especially Dr. Reed, to hear. "I don't shake hands with the staff." The words dropped into the quiet hallway like ice cubes in a hot drink. The air crackled. The organizer's face went white. Mr. Dubois and Ms. Chin exchanged an uneasy glance. Alistair's own assistants, Mark and Jonathan, let out weak, pathetic chuckles that died in the suffocatingly awkward silence. This was classic Alistair, asserting his dominance in the most casual, cruel way imaginable. It was a power play, a microaggression so blatant it felt like theater. He was reminding everyone of the pecking order, with him at the very, very top. But then, something he didn't expect happened. Dr. Evelyn Reed didn't flinch. She didn't get angry or embarrassed. The reaction he was banking on, the flustered retreat that would confirm his power, never came. Instead, she just lowered her hand, slowly and gracefully. A faint, knowing smile touched her lips. It wasn't a look of offense, but something much more complicated. It was the look of a scientist who had just confirmed a sad hypothesis. "I see," she said, her voice just as calm and steady as before. "Thank you for clarifying, Mr. Finch." And with that, she gave a slight nod and turned away, leaving Alistair Finch in the quiet echo of his own arrogance. He felt a strange, unfamiliar prickle of confusion. The power move hadn't landed. He'd thrown the punch, but his opponent had simply refused to acknowledge it. It was like punching a ghost. He shrugged it off. Whatever. She was a nobody. He had a $2 billion deal to close. He turned to his assistants. "Let's go. Time to show them what real power looks like." He strode into the conference hall, the master of his universe, completely unaware that the foundations of his empire had just been cracked by 7 careless words. He was about to give the performance of his life, but the final act had already been written by someone else. Section 2, The Unraveling. The stage was a masterclass in corporate theater. A giant screen showed the Finch Industries logo, a stylized falcon, pulsing with a cool blue light. The lighting hit Alistair just right, casting him in a heroic glow as he took the podium. The room was packed. Journalists lined the walls, and the front rows were a who's who of global finance. Right there, front and center, sat the board members from Innovate Forward, faces unreadable, pens ready. Alistair launched into his speech. His voice, honed by years of boardroom brawls, was a powerful instrument of confidence and authority. He talked about synergy and paradigm shifts. He unveiled dazzling projections, satellite maps covering the globe, and profit forecasts so audacious they were breathtaking. Finch Industries doesn't follow the future, he boomed, arms spread wide. We are the architects of what's next. And with our partner, Innovate Forward, we won't just lead the market, we will become the market. This isn't just an investment, it's an ascension. He was magnificent. He was compelling. In his mind, he was sealing the deal with every perfectly crafted word. He felt the familiar energy in the room, a mix of awe and envy. He saw the Innovate Forward board members nodding and whispering to each other, probably marveling at his genius. After a roaring finish and a dramatic pause, he concluded. Together, we will build the tomorrow we all deserve. Thank you. Thunderous applause. Alistair stood at the podium, basking in it, letting himself have a moment of pure triumph. He'd done it. Again. The event moderator, the same guy from the hallway who now looked like he'd aged 10 years, stepped up to the mic. Thank you, Mr. Finch, for that, truly visionary presentation. Now, to formalize this partnership, we invite the leadership from Innovate Forward to the stage. Alistair stayed at the podium, a benevolent king ready to welcome his new subjects. He watched the Innovate Forward board members get up and walk toward the stage. But then they stopped. They turned and looked back at their table, as if waiting for someone. The moderator cleared his throat, his voice shaking. And now, it is my profound honor to introduce the mind behind Innovate Forward's incredible success, the architect of their ethical investment strategy, and their esteemed Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Evelyn Reed. Time seemed to slow to a crawl for Alastair Finch. The name echoed in the hall, each syllable a hammer blow to his reality. Dr. Evelyn Reed. He scanned the stage, his mind refusing to connect the dots. It had to be a different Dr. Reed. It just had to be. And then he saw her. Rising from her seat in the front row, with the same calm grace she'd had in the hallway, was the woman he'd written off. The woman whose hand he wouldn't shake. As she walked up the steps, her charcoal gray suit suddenly looked less like a uniform and more like armor. The quiet confidence he'd mistaken for subservience now radiated as absolute, undeniable power. The room started buzzing. People who knew her reputation began to realize what was happening. Alastair stood frozen, a statue of disbelief. His perfect smile was gone, replaced by a slack-jawed emptiness. The blood drained from his face. The only thing in focus was Dr. Evelyn Reed, walking right past him to the other podium. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment for eternity, the titan of industry, completely undone, and the quiet woman he'd mistaken for staff, now holding his entire future in her hands. Dr. Reed adjusted the microphone. She didn't look at Alastair. She looked at the audience. When she spoke, her voice wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that silenced the entire room. "Good morning," she began. "I am Dr. Evelyn Reed, CEO of Innovate Forward. I want to thank Mr. Finch for his enthusiastic presentation." She paused, letting the irony hang in the air. "Innovate Forward was founded on a simple principle," she continued. "We believe capital has a conscience. We believe the greatest innovations come from brilliant minds, yes, but also from sound character. For months, we've done our due diligence on a potential $2 billion partnership with Finch Industries. On paper, the synergy is obvious." She finally turned and looked directly at Alastair Finch, her gaze not hateful, but piercingly analytical. "But our due diligence goes beyond spreadsheets. We analyze a company's culture. Its values. Its leadership. Because a partnership isn't a transaction, it's a relationship. And we don't get into relationships with people or companies we can't trust or respect." The air in the room got thin. Everyone knew this wasn't about business anymore. This was a reckoning. "An investment this big requires more than financial alignment," Dr. Reed said, her voice rock solid. "It requires an alignment of values. It requires deep respect, not just for partners, but for every single person who contributes to a company, no matter their title. A leader who can't show that basic decency is a liability. Their judgment is compromised by arrogance. A culture that rewards that behavior is not a culture we can invest in, because it's unsustainable. It's brittle. And ultimately, it's just a bad investment." Then, she addressed the moment directly. "A little while ago, I had the chance to meet Mr. Finch. I extended my hand, and he told me he doesn't shake hands with the staff. He made an assumption based on how I look. He made a judgment, and in doing so, he showed us everything we needed to know about his character and the culture at his company." A collective gasp swept through the hall. On the giant screen behind them, some technician, either in shock or as an act of poetic justice, switched the feed to a live shot of Alastair's face. It was a wreck. Pale, sweating, his eyes wide with dawning horror. Dr. Reed turned back to the audience. "So, with regret, but with total certainty, I am announcing that Innovate Forward will not be proceeding with this deal. We are officially withdrawing our $2 billion backing from Finch Industries. We wish them well." She finished with a simple, devastatingly final, "This meeting is adjourned." She nodded once, turned, and walked off the stage without a single look back. Her board followed her out of the hall in a silent, stoic line. For 10 full seconds, there was absolute silence. Then, chaos. Journalists scrambled for their phones. The Finch Industries stock ticker, FICH, which had been scrolling at the bottom of a news screen, suddenly turned blood red with a violent downward arrow. Alastair's own board members were on their feet, their faces a mix of rage and panic. Alastair Finch just stood there, a man adrift in the wreckage he had built. He gripped the podium as if it were the only thing holding him up. He had walked onto that stage a king. He would walk off a cautionary tale. The $2 billion were gone. But that was just the start. He was about to learn that the price of disrespect was far, far higher. Section 3, The Lesson. The fallout wasn't a slow burn, it was a detonation. The story of the handshake that cost $2 billion went viral before Dr. Reed's car even left the hotel. It was the lead story on every financial network and a trending topic everywhere. The grainy phone clip of Alastair's snub played on a loop, a digital monument to his own stupidity. For Finch Industries, the effect was catastrophic. Losing Innovate Forward's investment wasn't just about the cash, it was a massive vote of no confidence that echoed through the financial world. It sent a clear signal: Alastair Finch, the infallible titan, had a fatal flaw. Two other investors, spooked by the PR nightmare, pulled their funding within hours. By the end of the day, Finch Industries had lost over 30% of its market value, a paper loss of nearly $10 billion. The empire was bleeding out. Alastair locked himself in his corner office for the next 48 hours, the city view that once made him feel powerful now just mocking him. His board, once a bunch of yes-men, was now a firing squad demanding he resign. His loyal lieutenants, Mark and Jonathan, were suddenly busy polishing their resumes and dodging his calls. On the third day, one person came to see him. It was Arthur Vance, the oldest board member, a man who had worked for Alastair's father. Arthur didn't yell. He just sat down and looked at Alastair with profound pity. "I tried to warn you, Alastair," Arthur said, his voice raspy. "For years. Your father, he was a tough man, but he knew the name of every janitor in this building. He understood a foundation is built from the ground up. You only ever looked at the sky." "It was a mistake," Alastair mumbled. "A misjudgment." "No," Arthur corrected him gently. "It wasn't a moment. It was your whole philosophy, boiled down into one sentence. You didn't lose $2 billion because you refused a handshake. You lost it because of why you refused it. You believe some people are worth less than others. And in today's world, that idea isn't just morally bankrupt, it's financially bankrupt, too." Arthur slid a single piece of paper across the desk. His severance agreement. The board had already voted. He was out. Meanwhile, Dr. Evelyn Reed became an overnight icon. Not as a corporate killer, but as a moral leader. In her one and only interview, she didn't gloat. She talked about the future of business. This was never about punishing one man, she explained. It was about affirming a principle. The landscape of power is changing. For too long, high finance has been an exclusive club with unwritten rules that benefited a select few. That era is ending. She talked about the data, how companies with diverse leadership consistently outperform their peers. She mentioned that less than 1% of venture capital goes to businesses led by women of color, not because of a lack of talent, but because of the exact bias Alastair had personified. "My decision," she said, was a message to every investor, board member, and CEO. Look around your table. Who is missing? Whose hand are you refusing to shake? Because talent and the next great idea aren't confined to people who look and sound just like you. Respect isn't a soft skill, it's a core business strategy. Judging people by their character is the toughest form of due diligence there is. Within a week, Innovate Forward reallocated the $2 billion. Not to one giant company, but to a dozen smaller, innovative ones, many led by women and minorities, the very entrepreneurs overlooked by men like Alastair Finch. It was both a smart financial move and a powerful statement. It was an investment in a different kind of future. CTA. The story of Alastair Finch and Evelyn Reed is a stark reminder that true power isn't always loud, and true wealth isn't just about money. It's about character. What do you think? Was Dr. Reed's action a necessary lesson, or did she go too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe stories like this need to be told, make sure to like and subscribe for more tales of consequence and character. Conclusion: the echo of a handshake. In the end, Alastair Finch didn't become a tragic hero. He just became irrelevant. He faded from the headlines, a ghost in the world he once ruled. His name became a verb in some circles: don't pull a Finch. Dr. Evelyn Reed, on the other hand, kept building. She never chased the spotlight, but it found her anyway. She became a symbol of a cultural earthquake, proof that the old guard was losing its grip. Her quiet power spoke volumes more than any of Alastair's arrogant speeches. This story, real or not, leaves us with a profound lesson. The world is full of brilliant people in unassuming packages. Power has a new face, and it often belongs to the person you least expect. It reminds us that underestimating anyone is a dangerous game. Respect costs nothing, but a lack of it can cost you everything. In the empty space where a handshake should have been, an entire empire collapsed, and a new one began to rise.